All Happy Inventor videos are for educational purposes only. Mr. Ragnar is neither a patent attorney nor a licensed patent practitioner. Therefore, no portion of this or any other Happy Inventor video should be considered legal advice. If you have a patent need, you are advised to contact a licensed patent professional. Welcome. I'm Gary Ragnar, and you are watching the first episode of the Happy Inventor channel. And boy, has it been a journey to get here. Between tweaking the video, audio, and lighting, it has taken me over a month to get everything working at the same time. But now we're here. And the Happy Inventor channel is actually dedicated to you, the struggling inventor, who wants to take their ideas and inventions and produce income. Now, it is my hope that this channel will provide you with the tools and skills to actually achieve your financial goals with your inventions. I should point out that this first episode will be a little bit different than most episodes on this channel, in that this first episode is an overview of the invention process. And I will be teaching you the 7 steps that I actually use with my own inventions to turn them from ideas into income. Now, most of the episodes on this channel will actually be me demonstrating these 7 steps. This will give you a concrete example of how to do these steps, and you won't be bored to death with me lecturing you. In most cases, these 7 steps should be done in numerical order, both to provide you with a logical framework for developing your invention, and also to provide you with legal protection at the proper time so that you don't incur added expenses. However, for some inventions it makes sense to do these 7 steps out of order, and when we come to those types of inventions, I'll be explaining the logic behind that. Also, for some inventions, it makes sense to skip steps. For example, if I'm developing a space station, it really doesn't make sense for me to build a prototype of that space station. For one, it would be extremely expensive, and 2, how do I get it into orbit to actually test it? So as a general rule, we want to do these 7 steps in numerical order, but there are exceptions to that rule. So now let's go ahead and get started, and pay close attention to the following introduction, because it explains the 7 steps of inventing that I'll be discussing. Did you see the 7 steps of inventing in that introduction? These are the 7 steps I'll be discussing in this video. And note that each step can have several parts to it, and I'll be discussing that also. So let's get started with step number 1, what I like to call brainstorming an idea. Many people think that inventing is just wham, something hits you and you've got it, and that's your invention. And sometimes that's how it happens. But if you wait around for an invention to occur, you might be waiting a long time, because I would have to say most of my inventions, and I have over 1,000 of them, didn't come to me by poof. It came to me by me actually looking at an area that I wanted to invent in, or seeing a problem that I wanted to fix, and then actually inventing a solution to that problem or a product for that area of inventing. For example, a garden hose is heavy and is hard to handle, is long, gets tangled up, and you could say, I'd like to solve that problem. It's always a mess to drain the water out of it. It has so many different problems. And the idea of making a better hose is just that, it's an idea. And turning that idea into an invention involves actually creating hardware. How is it actually constructed to make it a better hose? That's the invention. The idea is that I'd like a better hose, or I want a better hose that would do maybe something, but you don't have necessarily the structure. And this brings up a good point, because the patent office will not give you a patent for an idea, because an idea is too abstract, but they will give you a patent for an invention. And to get an invention, you have to describe to them the structure of your invention well enough that someone could build it. You may have heard the saying, necessity is the mother of all invention. And in some sense, that's true. You see a need or a problem, and you decide you want to fix it, and you have to invent something to fix that problem. Now, every once in a while, an invention will just pop in your head, but most of the time, you see the need, and then the invention pops in your head. It's not the other way around. And so, when inventing something, and you want to start in a new invention, what I do is I actually pick the area that I want to invent in. And this could be any area. If you work in a kitchen, it might be a kitchen tool. If you work in an auto shop, it might be a part for an automobile or an accessory for an automobile. If you work in the airline industry, it might be something to improve the way you can feed people on the airplane. It could be anywhere, and there's problems everywhere. Many things are just not designed very well and cause the user problems. And so really, when you're just going throughout your day, just notice when things are irritating you. Something is just not working right. And that is a key item that is due for replacement with a good invention. So having problems for an inventor is actually a good thing, because it will spur you on to invent new products that solve those problems. Another aspect of step number 1 while you're brainstorming is to actually do a lot of research in the area that you're inventing. This can include doing a patent search in the area to see what other people have invented. And this gives you a good idea of whether your invention is new or novel also. But it also gives you ideas of how you might improve other people's inventions. I'm actually getting ready to invent in the area of space stations. Now, you might imagine designing a space station could be very complicated. And it actually is, because there's a lot of technical things that you have to do correctly to make that space station work properly. And to understand all those technical things, I've had to do a lot of research to figure out what works in a space station and what doesn't work in a space station, and simply understand what parameters I'm going to need to have in my space station before I even start inventing anything. So this research is really part of the idea process, understanding the area that you want to invent in before you actually invent anything. Once you have a clear idea of the area that you want to invent in, and possibly you've done a search for other inventions or done some research, you're ready to go to step 2, which is to actually create your invention. Now, I've mentioned before that an invention is actually the structure that you use, and you have to describe that well enough that someone could build it. And that means identifying the components of your invention and how those components are connected to one another. This is not to say that you haven't already started to form in your mind how you want to build your invention. Because as you've looked at other people's inventions, and as you've looked and researched the area that you want to invent in, you get ideas on how you might construct your invention. And so you have these ideas for pieces and parts of your invention. And now in step 2, you actually need to compile those ideas and form an actual structure, a physical structure for your invention. At this point, the inventing process may seem very abstract to you, but in future episodes I will be demonstrating the actual invention process, and it will become much, much clearer. There are 2 things you must understand about your inventions before we can go on to the next step, which is actually to do a patent search. And that is, you need to know what components are absolutely necessary for your invention, and also how these components are put together, how they are connected to one another, how they are assembled, how they move or actuate with respect to one another. So consider your invention and think of these parts and how they're put together, because as we go into step 3, doing a patent search, we'll be using that to actually find patents that may interfere with our invention. I'm old enough to remember the time when the only way to do a patent search was either to go to the United States Patent and Trademark Office and physically do that patent search there, or go to a national library that had the complete patent list on microfiche. I remember driving to my state capital a number of times to actually look through the microfiche and see what patents were out there and what inventions were out there. But luckily nowadays there's many online search engines that you can use. I personally like to use the United States Patent and Trademark Office website when I'm doing a patent search. They're located at uspto.gov. Besides them, I also like to use the Google patent search engine because it has a little bit better success in finding obscure inventions that you are trying to find on a particular function. There's also a number of national search agencies out there that can provide you with the patents from many, many foreign countries, including all of Europe and of China. Besides patents, you can also search patent applications at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. This allows you a little bit clearer look into what inventions are actually out there. But even these patent applications are 18 months or older because they are not published until 18 months after they are filed. So that means there's an 18-month window in there where someone could have invented your invention, but you just don't know about it. This could be a problem, but in my experience it has not been a big factor, and only 2 or 3 of my inventions have been disqualified because someone had invented it just slightly prior to me inventing it. If you can't find your invention in the patent citations or patent application lists, it may be time to do a prototype, just to check out to see if your invention is working the way you think it is working. This brings us to step number 4, which is building a prototype. There are 2 main reasons why you might want to build a prototype. First, you might want to build a prototype to test to see if your invention actually works, or to see how well it works. Second, you might want to build a prototype to show to potential clients, such as manufacturers, licensees, or investors. Now the first one, where you build a prototype to actually test the functionality of your invention, this type of prototype doesn't have to look good. You can put anything together and it doesn't matter what it looks like. This makes it much easier to build this type of prototype. When you're building a prototype to show to investors, you want that prototype to look as good as it can and to function as well as it can. Because in general, I've found most people cannot imagine what a product is going to look like or how it will function. You literally have to show them. Even small improvements or explanations don't seem to work. You need to show that product to them. And that is a main reason you want to do a prototype if you're going to be selling it to potential licensees or a manufacturer. Here's an example of a prototype that I made for the specific purpose of showing to clients. Notice that it looks like a finished product. These ends were actually cut off a separate bungee cord for use on a section of an expandable and retractable hose. And the result is what we call a super bungee. Instead of being able to just stretch 50% like most bungees, the super bungee can stretch out to almost 600%. That's about 10 times greater than a normal bungee. And so it has much more utility. And not only that, it looks a whole lot better than a standard bungee. A standard bungee actually looks like a toy compared to this. And so this is an example of how you can make a prototype very simply from things that exist at your hardware store and produce a product that is almost production quality. A little while ago, I built a washing machine prototype for the specific purpose of testing its unique properties and seeing if it would actually function the way that I thought it would. To do this, I actually just went down to my local hardware store and bought some 2x4s and 4x4 lumber and a swivel bearing, something that you might have on a table that would spin, and I bought a small trash can that I would use for the wash tub. I came home and put this all together and tested that particular washing machine design. Now this machine had a very unique property about it, which I can't tell you because I haven't filed the patent application on that yet. But I needed to test this unique property. And this very crude prototype was sufficient for me to test that property and dynamics of the system. Now, if you brought 10 people in and showed them this prototype, 9 out of 10 would have no idea what they were even looking at. And that is indicative of a testing prototype. It doesn't need to look good. You just need to put it together so that it works. And it's amazing how crudely you can put things together and make them work. Now, when you're building a prototype for a manufacturer or a licensee or some other customer that you have, you want that to be as polished as possible. And one way to do this is, again, go down to your local hardware store, but this time you're looking for pieces and parts on items that are in the store that you can glue or weld or staple or screw together to form your prototype. And because you're using parts that are from manufactured parts, your prototype can end up looking very polished and almost like a finished manufactured product. So for example, I might buy an appliance just to get the handle off that appliance. Or I might buy a specific device just to pull the spring that it has in there and use that. And so I can get all the different parts that I need from these existing consumer products that all look very polished, all are injection molded parts or machine parts or specifically manufactured parts, and put them together to produce your prototype. And this way you can, for dirt cheap, have a prototype that you can show clients that actually works and looks good. Now, getting it to look good is partly artistic too. And if you have an artist friend or two, you might consult with them as you're putting this together on how to make it look better, how to make it sexy, how to make it appealing to whoever you're showing it to. And remember, an investor or a manufacturer is a person too, and they want to see the same things that you would. They want to see a sexy looking product that does exactly what you want it to and works great. And so you want your prototypes to have those qualities also. So strive for those qualities in your prototypes and you will go far. Now, you may have noticed that steps 2, 3, and 4 are actually supportive of one another and can be done in various orders depending on the invention. For example, say you invent something and then you do a patent search and find that someone else has already invented something very similar to yours. You may look through the patent office and find technology that you can apply to your invention and actually make it better. Also, say you build this improved invention and then you build a prototype and find out that there's a problem with your invention. By building a prototype, you can identify that problem and then reinvent your invention and make a better product or a better invention. This can be done over and over again, and in fact what I do with my inventions, I like to invent something and then I consider how can I improve that invention even further. This is a good way to leapfrog over the general inventor who will look at something, invent something, and will stop and leave it there. You're with the crowd of inventors, and a lot of times if you do that, you are inventing things that other people are inventing at the same time, just because different technologies become available and you look at those and you say, it gives you an idea. So going to the patent office, building prototypes can actually help you leapfrog over the existing patents that are out there and the patent applications that you don't know about. In step 5, we're going to file a patent application. Now this process is very complicated and I'm not going to go into very much detail here, other than it has key components. You have to have the drawings for your invention, and then you have the specifications, which is the description of your invention. And when you do file a patent application, the patent office wants you to disclose enough information that someone skilled in your particular field, or in fact any field, could make that invention. So you have to describe it well enough that someone could make it. And now you kind of get an idea of the difference between an invention and an idea. If you tell someone an idea, maybe they could make it, maybe they make something else. But if you tell them exactly how to build something, then you know what your invention is. When I got started in inventing, I started with a Patent It Yourself book by David Pressman. And this told me exactly how to fill out a patent application. Nowadays, you can actually go to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and they have a complete outline of how to write a patent application. And I would recommend going there or buying David Pressman's book to help you actually file these patent applications. If you don't want to spend 3 months figuring out how to do that, you can also go down in the links below and you'll see the patent attorney that I actually use for my tough patents that I need to do. While a patent application is actually fairly complicated, it's not much more than doing a term paper in college. And if you're willing to spend the time to consider the different margins you have to put on the page and what kind of drawings you have to do, it's really very doable for the average person. There are two basic types of patent applications. A provisional patent application, which is a more informal application that the patent office really doesn't take a look at and just files away for safekeeping. And then there's the non-provisional patent application, which requires an oath and the correct formatting, and the patent office will check your application over to make sure all the parts are there, and if they're not there, they will notify you to remedy that situation. Now, for new inventors, I recommend they do the provisional patent application because the criteria is a lot less strict, and it gives you a year really to decide whether you want to follow up with a non-provisional application, which costs considerably more to file. If all goes well with your patent application and the patent examiner agrees with you that you deserve a patent, you'll be issued a patent number and a patent certificate. Here's some of my foreign patents. This one is actually from China. This one is from Australia. And this one is from the European Union. Each of these are just a single sheet showing that I am the patent holder of a particular invention. Countries like Canada actually issue the whole patent to you with a cover sheet on it. But the US actually bind their patents in sort of a book form with a front and back cover and the patent on very heavy paper stock in between. Now, this is the old style that they used between 1990 and 2018. And before that, they actually leather bound their patents. And I just missed that. My first patent wasn't in time to get a leather bound patent, so I do not own a leather bound patent, but that's what they did from the 1800s all the way to the late 1980s. The new look for the patent is right here. This is what the new patents look like. They're kind of nice. They've got a gold emblem on the top and gold lettering. And again, the patent itself is bound inside the cover. And so that's what patents look like, and that's what you're striving for, is to get these patents so that you can actually license and sell that patent. That patent gives you the right to force other people to pay you for the use of your invention. So there's actually many ways of marketing your invention. And one of the first things you should do is identify your potential customers. What manufacturers might want your invention? What other sales groups might want it? For example, direct response marketing television. Or is there some companies out there that might be interested in just buying your patent outright? You should try to identify these people so that you know who your market is. Then you can also prepare a presentation. And this presentation might take the form of a video presentation, which is what we do many times, is we just make a 2 or 3 minute commercial or video, very low key, just me talking, sort of like I'm talking to you, and explaining the functions and the benefits of a particular invention. And oftentimes we have a prototype that we're demonstrating. And the prototype we're demonstrating may be fully functional or partially functional in the video, because the client doesn't have to see or touch it. You don't necessarily have to have everything working on that prototype to demonstrate all the functions of it. You can also prepare a presentation that you do in person. And in this case, it actually is kind of important to have a working prototype, because they're going to want to see what they're potentially going to buy. And you need to actually demonstrate to them that you can provide the invention that they're wanting. So as with all marketing, if you don't succeed the first time, just try again, because there's many places where you can actually sell your invention or your patent. In the case of this invention, I built this prototype to show to a couple DRTV agencies, direct response television, which do the commercials for products on television and have the as seen on television sections of Walmart and other stores. Well, they loved this prototype, and they both were willing to actually test market it. But this particular product was not exactly right for the DRTV market. And so both of them actually turned this down. And if you stick around to step 7, I will tell you how we actually did make money with this invention. But the marketing that we did on this got us in the door, this prototype. They saw this, they saw how it worked, they saw it was better than anything else out there, and they wanted to test it. In fact, they came back twice to test it because they weren't exactly sure they should pass on it. So even if your first marketing choice doesn't work out, there are still plenty of markets in which you can sell your invention. When direct response television marketing companies didn't want this product, I simply moved on to other markets. And in step number 7, I'll be discussing how we actually made money with this product. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like button below. If you're watching this on a smart television, you can get to the like button by pressing the arrow up twice and then cursoring across until you get to the like button and the subscribe button. This will help us present these videos to other inventors that may not find it. In step 7, we'll be learning how to make money from our inventions. Now, there's many different ways that you can market your invention. One of my favorite ones is actually licensing the patent that I have on my invention. Now, I should point out, if your patent is just pending, this is not as valuable as actually holding the patent, especially when you go to try and sell it or license it, because the person that's buying or licensing that idea, really you don't have any protection yet until that patent issues. And so it's much, much more difficult to do than once you hold the patent itself. But licensing is nice in that it's pure profit. They sell the product, they collect it, they manage it, and then they send you a check. And this check you put in the bank and you use it for whatever you want. You don't have any overhead associated with that. You don't have to do anything other than going to the bank and cashing the check. So this is a very good means of making money, very low risk money, and very low risk method to turn your invention into cash. Now, you can also take the patent and sell it. And again, the patent application is very hard to sell, where a patent itself can be sold relatively easy depending on what patent it is and what it is on. Another way to make money from your inventions is to find a partner, and even a partner in the field of your invention is very useful. And a partner that has money is even better, because they can help finance whatever method you're going to use to develop your invention and make money from it. Also, if you find a partner that has done this before with inventions, that's even better. If they know already how to take inventions to market, how to take inventions to businesses and manufacturers and other agencies that might be interested, this is a big plus. But beware, there's a lot of charlatans out there. Not everybody that says they know what to do with an invention or a patent really knows what to do with a patent. I've found that out many times. So beware, and trust your friends more than some stranger that comes up and tells you that they know how to make you lots and lots of money. This is generally a warning signal. There's also contract manufacturing, where you can contract with a manufacturer to produce your product for you. This is much, much simpler than you actually setting up a manufacturing plant and trying to manufacture the product yourself. This is kind of what we did with this bungee cord. I built this prototype, and we realized that it was good enough for production, and we started making these to sell in stores. And we actually started to sell them in stores. And this is essentially the same design that we use for the ones that went into the stores. And as we sold them in the stores, we found out that many people really liked it. And so we got a contract manufacturer to start making these things for us by the thousands. And we didn't have to have the factory. We didn't have to have the equipment. We didn't have to store the materials for building these things. They handled all that. In fact, they handled our shipping for us too. So we didn't have to deal with the product at all. They handled everything. The development of this was fairly short because we were using essentially this prototype as an example, and we just started building it the same way. So this is another way you can make money from your invention. Now, the final method is the hardest, and that is to actually start manufacturing the product yourself. This can be very, very difficult, and I really can't recommend it unless you have a lot of experience in manufacturing and know what you're getting yourself into, because you have overhead on the manufacturing facility itself. You have to have equipment, you have to have employees, you have to have all kinds of things and understand a lot of things to actually run a manufacturing plant. And so for the average person, having a manufacturing plant is out. Even with investors, unless the investors are really experienced on knowing how to handle manufacturing facilities, I wouldn't bother doing that. I would stay away from that and go with either licensing or selling the patent or contract manufacturing. And so you can see that there's many, many methods for making money from your inventions, and there's definitely a system and process that you can use to develop your inventions to the point that you can make money. However, patents by themselves are not generally that valuable unless they're associated with a product. Manufacturers tend to go by sales as opposed to a gut feeling about a product. They will pay a lot less with an unproven product. So sometimes it makes sense to actually start manufacturing it yourself and selling it so that you have a sales record that you can show other manufacturers and say, look, this is how this product is selling. And they can get on board. That's actually what happened with this. We not only had this prototype, but when we started selling it in stores and things, both DRTV companies came back to us and said, well, maybe we'll take another look at this. And so sales is another motivating and marketing factor that can help sell your product and sell your invention. Now, other ways to develop your invention is to find a partner that has money and wants or is excited about your invention. This can go a long way to producing money because your partner may be more experienced than you are. There's also contract manufacturing, where you have a separate company or manufacturer that makes your product for you. We've done this before with a vacuum cleaner nozzle, where we sold the patent for the vacuum cleaner nozzle, or rather licensed it, and in the licensing agreement, we got them to make the same product for us at 10% overhead costs. Thus, we got the product we wanted to sell in other markets that they were not interested in at no cost to us, because they paid for the injection molding equipment and injection molds and all of that to manufacture our product for us. And we just paid 10% for them doing all that. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. And next week, we will have an episode on inventing space stations. We'll be focused on step one, kind of researching and developing our ideas for space stations. But the whole concept there will be to develop a space station that is inexpensive and easy to get into space. So until next time, this is the Happy Inventor. Have a great day.